Okay, hello. My name is Michael Kay, and I will be guiding you through IELTS Intensive Writing Lesson 5 today. Okay, so let's have a look at the lesson. So today we're going to be looking at a lot of Part 1 stuff, in particular how to analyse and approach mixed charts. So let's have a look at the first exercise. IELTS Writing Task 1 sometimes requires you to describe two figures. Before writing your response, it is important to ask yourself the following. What do both figures relate to? What kind of relationship is evident? Is it a similarity, a cause and effect relationship, a difference, or some type of other relationship? So I want you to just look at the first two questions here, okay, for exercise 1. And then have a look at these two graphs. We have one which is about disposable income by age in the UK, and another one which is about a percentage increase or decrease in sales. Look at the two figures, then answer the first two questions. When you're ready, stop the recording, and then once you have the answers, you can replay it. So stop the recording now. Okay, let's go over the answers to the first two. So, both figures here relate to consumer spending, okay? That's the answer to number 1. The answer to number 2 is C. It's a cause and effect relationship. As we can see here, the more disposable income a certain age group has, the more there is a rise or fall in the percentage of sales for a particular thing. For example, if we have a look at, let's see, something that 15 to 24-year-olds are more likely to buy, video games, okay? In 2004, we have a 6% increase. And in 2004, we also have the biggest increase in disposable income by that age group. Hence, cause and effect relationship. Let's go on to exercise 1, part 3 and part 4, okay? So first of all, which aspects of each figure should be highlighted? And then, should the figures be described in separate paragraphs? Or should different aspects of the figures be compared within a series of paragraphs, okay? When you're ready, pause the video and then replay it once you have the answer. So pause the video now. Okay, let's talk about the aspects of each figure that should be highlighted. So, if you look at the overall trends, you may notice a connection between the disposable income of the three age groups and the sales figures for the products most likely to be purchased by people in these age groups. As I showed you before, if you have a look at video game sales and their increase in 2004 to 6%, that relates to 15 to 24-year-olds having more disposable income in that period than in any other period, okay? We could also look at a few other aspects that would help prove this cause and effect relationship. Let's have a look at the 35 to 44-year-old age group who have the most disposable income. The important figure here really is in 2008, where they have a £250 a week disposable income, which is by far the most disposable income any of the age groups have during this period. If we have a look at 2008, what do we see the biggest increase in sales in? Business suits and books, okay, which are more likely to be purchased by this age group. We also see an interesting increase in children's toys. Now, when I've done this lesson with classes in the past, they always think children's toys would be most likely to be purchased by the 15 to 24 age group, but this is incorrect. If you really think about it, 15 to 24-year-olds don't really buy children's toys. They're more likely to buy things like video games or comic books or something like that, you know. Maybe not comic books these days, manga, whatever. But it's really the 35 to 44-year-olds that buy children's toys because they're more likely to have children that they need to look after, you see. Okay? Let's also have a look at the drops in sales, okay? So again, if we have a look at business suits, the lowest figures for business suits are here. 2% in 2001, where the 35 to 40-year-old age group only had a disposable income of £150 per week. And then there's a huge decrease at the end of the period for business suits of minus 6%, okay? An even bigger decrease, or an even lower percentage, despite the fact that they have slightly more income than they did at the beginning of the period. You've got to think about how, of course, the economy is affected by inflation, and also that how the huge drop in disposable income perhaps reflects a problem within the jobs market, etc. Let's quickly have a look at this final age group, the 65 to 74-year-olds. What are they most likely to buy? Well, in my opinion, that would be reading glasses, okay? As you can see, the reading glasses sales are very consistent throughout the entire period, as is the disposable income of this age group throughout the entire period. There is a slight drop in 2004, which you might want to highlight because you could show the minus 1% decrease in sales here. But you don't even really need to mention that. Just showing that the consistency is the same between the sales of reading glasses and the disposable income of that age group would be completely fine. Let's go on to part 4 of exercise 1 now. So, the truth is, with this particular question, you could actually do either. You could describe the figures in separate paragraphs and then link the two paragraphs together by referring back. For example, if you cover the disposable income by age graph in one paragraph, you could cover the percentage increase or decrease in sales in the second paragraph, and you could refer back to the figures in the disposable income by age paragraph. But I would be more likely to cover different age groups in each paragraph. So I would probably do my first paragraph about the 35 to 44 year old age group, because they have the most dynamic graph. You know, they have the biggest drops and the biggest heights. And also you could talk about business suits, children's toys and books within paragraph number 1. I would then talk about the 15 to 24 year olds and the 65 to 74 year olds in paragraph 2, because the figures are, I would say, slightly less interesting, especially for the 65 to 74 year olds. I would probably just include that at the very end of paragraph 2, or perhaps I would actually just mention that in paragraph 3, to be honest. Okay, let's go on to the second exercise. So what you need to do is read the response below and then answer the 6 questions here near the bottom of the page. So when you're ready, pause the video, then read the text and the questions. So pause the video now. Okay, let's go over the answers. So number 1. What information is given in each of the 3 sentences in the introduction? So, the first sentence gives a description of what is shown in figure 1. The second sentence gives a description of what is shown in figure 2. And then the third sentence makes a statement about the relationship between figures 1 and 2. If you're looking at a mixed graph question for IELTS writing part 1, this is exactly the structure that you want to follow for your introductory paragraph. Okay, this is perfect structure here. Number 2, what type of relationship between the 2 figures is identified, and how is this expressed? So, as we said before in exercise 1, it is of course a cause and effect relationship. And we can see this through certain phrases, for example, seen together, the figures suggest a link between, etc., etc. Okay? Number 3, how is each of the 3 body paragraphs structured? So in paragraph 1, the writer describes the overall trend in disposable income for 15 to 24-year-olds, then the overall trend in sales for the products most likely to be purchased by that age group. In paragraph 2, the writer describes the overall trend in disposable income for the 35 to 44-year-olds, then the overall trend in sales for the products most likely to be purchased by that age group. And then for paragraph 3, it's the exact same formula, but with 65 to 74-year-olds. Only, of course, you can see it's a much shorter sentence, because a much shorter paragraph, rather, a mistake, because, of course, the only product that they buy from the sales table is reading glasses, and of course, because, again, both are consistent. You don't really need to highlight any particular figures there, okay? So as you can see, they've actually used a 5-paragraph structure for this essay, which is completely fine. I would just use a 4-paragraph structure myself. I would probably, again, start with the 35 to 44-year-old age group for my first paragraph, and then combine the young people and the elderly demographics in one paragraph, and then finish, of course, with a similar conclusion. Okay. What specific information has the writer chosen to highlight, and why? So the writer has focused on peaks in both trends because this is sufficient to demonstrate that there is a connection, which is exactly what we said in part 3 of exercise 1. And number 6, what expression is used in the conclusion to express the relationship between the 2 figures? The answer to this one, I just realised I missed number 5. Sorry, we'll go over number 5 first. What expressions has the writer used to highlight the similarities and trends represented? Showed similar patterns with, also, not surprisingly. And number 6, the answer to number 6, which I just read out, is may be influenced by. Okay? So here's an exam tip. If you are presented with 2 figures which appear to show a cause and effect relationship, it is helpful to take note of this. It will enable you to highlight the information more effectively. However, you should be cautious about expressing a cause and effect relationship too directly. This is because IELTS Writing Task 1 does not ask you to interpret the table or refer to anything outside of it. If you use a cause and effect expression, causes leads to, use a hedging expression to make the claim less sweeping, like appears to cause, may lead to, or use one of the expressions in exercise 3. Alright, let's have a look at the next exercise. So, look at the 2 figures below. We have the percentage change in taxation and consumer credit and consumer spending in the UK. The 2 italicized expressions in sentences 1 and 2 can be used to describe the relationships between data sets. Indicate what each of them means by rephrasing the sentence. Okay, so have a look at these 2 sentences and then rephrase them. Okay? So when you're ready, pause the video, write down the answers, and then replay the video. Alright, let's have a look at the answers for this one. So for number 1, we could change the sentence to this. The availability of cheap credit increases consumers... When the availability of cheap credit increases, consumer spending increases. When the availability of cheap credit decreases, consumer spending decreases. Number 2, when the rate of taxation increases, consumer spending decreases. And when the rate of taxation decreases, consumer spending increases. Okay, now we need to rephrase each sentence in 3 different ways using the expressions A to F below. So when you're ready, pause the video, write down the answers, and then replay the video. Alright, I think this time I will show you the answers in the handouts actually. So here we go. Here are your answers for these exercises. A. The two figures show that the rate of taxation is inversely proportional to the levels of consumer spending. B. The two figures show that the availability of cheap credit is proportional to levels of consumer spending. C. When the availability of cheap credit rises, levels of consumer spending also appear to rise. D. When the rate of taxation falls, levels of consumer spending appear to rise. E. The less consumers are taxed, the more they spend. F. The more cheap credit is available, the more consumers spend. Okay, let's go into exercise 4. So, this time, you need to write a description of the two figures in exercise 3 using the following prompts. So an introduction, you need to state what figure 1 shows and state what figure 2 shows. Body paragraph 1, describe the overall relationship between the availability of credit and consumer spending using one of the phrases from exercise 3. Then give a more detailed description of the trends. For body paragraph 2, you need to describe the overall relationship between taxation and consumer spending using one of the phrases from exercise 3. Then give a more detailed description of the trends. And then for your conclusion, you need to rephrase the relationship between credit, taxation, and spending. Okay, so when you're ready, pause the video, write all of this. It's going to take you quite a while to do this, and then replay the video. So pause the video now. Alright, let's go over the answers. So that was quite a lot of writing. The next one's got even more writing than this one, just warning you. But let's go over the answers for exercise 4. Again, I'm going to show you a sample answer here. Okay? So figure 1 shows the percentage change in the amount of credit available and taxation between 1990 and 2010. The second figure shows the percentage increase in expenditure on 3 different types of products at 5-year intervals over the same time period. Seen together, the two figures suggest that there is a positive correlation between the availability of credit and levels of consumer spending. The availability of credit reached a peak in 2005 when nearly 60% more credit was available than in 1990. Spending on all 3 categories of products, food, household appliances and clothing, also reached a peak. On the other hand, the level of consumer spending appears to be inversely proportional to the rate of taxation. When taxation fell sharply in the periods leading up to 1995 and 2005, consumer spending appeared to increase sharply. Overall, greater availability of credit appears to act as a stimulus to consumer spending, whereas higher taxation may have the opposite effect. Just in case you don't already know, a stimulus means something that increases, improves, or energizes something. Okay? For example, if we think about food and drink, coffee is a stimulant because it energizes you. So in this sort of way, credit is a stimulus to consumer spending because it boosts it, energizes it, it increases it. Okay? Anyway, let's go on to the last big writing exercise for this lesson. There's not too much to go now. It's in a way quite a short lesson. Oh, actually, no, this is the homework. Okay, never mind that. So here is the homework for today, but we'll go over that in a minute. Before we do that, we're going to do one practice exercise, just one, from this book. Now, there are 4 practice exercises here, but they are all very similar in nature, and I personally don't think it's going to be that helpful to do all of them in the same lesson, okay? They're also very time consuming. So we're just going to do the first one, which I think is the most useful today, okay? This is what I would do in my regular class, I know that being a video lesson is a bit different because you can pause it and do it at your own speed, or you can decide to skip certain parts that you don't like. But in this particular case, I think this is the only one that's particularly beneficial. So we're just going to do this first one, exercise 9 here, okay? So, the diagram below shows the number of shoppers who visited a new shopping complex in its first year of operation and the estimated number of shoppers over the same period. Below the diagram, there are 2 charts which show the sales at the centre in the first and last quarters of the year. On the opposite page, there is a list of words and phrases with a modal answer. All of the items in the list fit into the modal, but some of them are more sophisticated than the alternative. Find the appropriate words and phrases to fill each blank and then decide which is the best answer. For example, the answer for number 1 is E or M, of which M is the better answer. So let's quickly look at the task before you begin it, okay? So the first graph here, we have the number of shoppers in their thousands, okay? So we have the estimated number of shoppers and then the actual number of shoppers. The estimates are the bars, and the actual number of shoppers is the line graph. Below that, we have sales in percentage terms for the first quarter, okay? And then we have sales in percentage terms for the last quarter. Here we have the list of words and phrases that you will need for the exercise. And then here we have the model answer. Now, I'm not going to go through every single answer that you can put into each box. I'm just going to give you the best possible answer. So you want to avoid basic answers where possible. So we have a look at number 1, where we have E or M. E is in the chart, very basic. M is as can be seen from the chart. It's still not particularly sophisticated, but it is a more sophisticated answer than E. So what I want you to do is not just identify every answer or just any possible answer that could work, but the best possible answer, and then I will give you the best possible answers at the end. So I think this is going to take you a while. This could take, I would say, 20 minutes easily, okay? Yep, when you're ready, pause the video, fill in the gaps with the best possible answers, and then replay the video, and then I will read out the model answer, giving you my answers, the answers I think are the best possible answers in each gap. So pause the video now. All right. So here we go. Give me a moment. Okay. So, number 1, the answers are E or M. I had M. So, as can be seen from the chart, in the first 2 months after the opening of a new shopping complex, the number of shoppers reached nearly 50,000, and then I had O, which is twice as much as the estimated figures. During March, however, the number of shoppers dropped slightly, and then I had K before they went up during April and May, once again, and then for number 4 I had G, outperforming the figures predicted. The summer months, for 5 I had V, just where. There's not another possible answer you could have used for that, so just where is fine. Not only rather erratic meaning chaotic or crazy, with the shopper numbers at the end of August. And for number 6 I had I, just being, there's no other answer that can really work for that. So at the end of August being no higher than, and then for number 7 I had P, they were at the end of February. So again, just a simple answer there, they were. And also falling well below the numbers, and then for number 8 I had N, which were predicted for the period. During September and October, the number of actual shoppers, H, declined further, but, and then for 10 I had J. November saw a noticeable turnaround with the volume of shoppers rising dramatically. And then for number 11 I had Y, during which time they did better than the figures predicted. December saw the spectacular rise continue with the number of people shopping at the centre for the year. And then for number 12 I had W. It showed that there were a change of nearly 160,000 visitors per month. The sales figures for number 13 I had Q, reveal a marked shift in spending patterns at the complex over the year with greater expenditure on toys, computers and other items at the expense of food and clothes. For example, toy sales soared from 5% to over 30%, while at the same time clothes sales, let's have a look, I had D, experienced a hefty fall. Okay, I think that will do actually for today's lesson. Quite a short lesson in terms of video content, but it's a lot of writing, you know, so that kind of makes up for it. So let's have a look at the homework for today, which is writing task 1. So you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The figures give information about economic growth and household expenditure across a range of categories. Summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So you need to write at least 150 words. Figure 1, we have economic growth. Figure 2, breakdown of household expenditure. And yep, all you need to do, of course, is summarise and make comparisons, okay? Then we have a writing task 2. A serious problem affecting countries right across the globe is the lack of water for drinking, washing, and other household uses. Why do many countries face water shortages, and what could be done to alleviate the problem? Okay, and that's it.